Andor Season 2 is on the horizon, and the rumour mill is swirling in regards to what we can expect from the new season.
There is a darkness reaching like rust.
Andor's a bit of a strange one in that it's widely regarded to be the best Star Wars Disney Plus show, yet at the same time feels the furthest away from what we had with the original trilogy.
Is that how you've been presenting yourself to the world?
However, this time around it's said to be very different, so pull on your rebel jumpsuits and fire up those X-Wings as we get into what we know and the direction it all looks to be headed in.
Fight the Empire!
Before we jump in, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and remember to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to catch more of the Star Wars videos. So with all that out of the way, let's get into Andor Season 2.
What game is this? No game. Kill me. Or take me in.
You'll be forgiven in thinking, Season 1 got off to a pretty slow start. It certainly took a bit of patience getting through those first 3 episodes, and this might be the reason they opted to do a triple episode premiere. However, I feel getting off to such a slow start didn't really help the lack of general audience interest in the show straight out of the box. But with that being said, those that did stick around and watch the entire first season were certainly rewarded as it ended in spectacular fashion.
Fight the Empire!
Whilst giving us a lot of cool moments along the way and setting the stage for one hell of a second season. We left off with all sides making their way to Ferrix for Marva Andor's funeral. Cassian, after spending time in the Nakina 5 prison unknowingly building parts for the Death Star, became aware of his mother's death shortly after his escape and wasn't going to miss it for the world. Whilst both the Empire and Luthen went solely for the purpose of tracking Cassian down, anticipating that he would show up there, the ISB wanted to question him on the Rebellion's recruitment, whilst Luthen wanted to neutralise Cassian and tie up what in his eyes were a few loose ends. However, pretty much nothing went to plan for either side, as the funeral itself caused what was likely the biggest rebel uprising against the Empire at the time. Spurred on by Marva's words in a hologram she left behind before she died.
The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness.
And I just have to say, this is probably one of the greatest monologues in Star Wars history. Anyways, all-out chaos pretty much erupted. However, Cassian still managed to get himself and his friends out of harm's way and into safety, arranging to meet up with him off-planet whilst he had one thing left to do. Now, Luthen, on the other hand, realising he couldn't get to Cassian today, but proud of the uprising he witnessed, headed back to his ship. However, was surprised to find Cassian himself waiting there for him. Now, he had the chance to complete his task and finish him off there and then, but after hearing Cassian wanted into his group full-time, decided to bring him on board. Now, we already know there are some characters that make it into Rogue One because we've seen them, so Season 2 is pretty safe for them. However, there are a lot that don't, and we'll get onto that later. Now, Season 2's done, it's ready to go. They could literally release it tomorrow if they wanted to. Filming for the show began way back in November 22 and wrapped in February this year. Now, there was quite a lengthy delay towards the end due to the writers and actors strike, which pretty much halted everything. They came back for reshoots in June as well, but that's pretty normal these days. It was originally supposed to be released around the end of the summer this year, however, that was pushed back to 2025. And word on the street is it's going to release fairly early on in the year, so right now we might not actually be that far away from it. There are already light promotions appearing on Disney Plus advertising the next season, and actors from Andor as well as those linked to the show through appearing later in the story in Rogue One and now being announced for Star Wars Celebration, which, given it looks likely Season 2 will release before or around SWC, is probably going to be a big focus of it. We've already had the trailer that was shown at the last Celebration leaked online, so now all eyes are on who's been announced, giving us an idea on who we can expect to appear in the final season. One of the biggest names so far that's just been revealed is Mads Mikkelsen. Now, he portrayed Galen Erso, Jyn Erso's father in Rogue One, and also the guy the galaxy pretty much blames for the Death Star. He was the Imperial scientist that was pretty much forced to leave his life behind by the Empire to help on its construction.
The work has stalled. I need you to come back.
Which we actually saw in its early stages of development in the post-credits scene of Season 1. So at this point in time, Galen would have already been forced back into the Empire, which means if he does make an appearance, we'll see him behind the scenes of the whole Death Star operation, perhaps even working on a way to incorporate his weakness, which really gives life to the original Star Wars trilogy. Fun fact, Mads Mikkelsen is actually the younger brother of Lars Mikkelsen, who portrays Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, whilst it's possible we could see him appear or at least have him mentioned in some capacity, blue guys don't really seem to be the idea here, so I wouldn't hold your breath on it. In fact, Andor Season 1 overall, it's fair to say, didn't feel like the Star Wars we've become accustomed to. It couldn't really get any further away from that fairy tale feeling of the originals or even the prequels. It's very much a boots on the ground, gritty kind of show where there wasn't any Jedi wielding the Force or swinging lightsabers around, which actually makes a ton of sense when you come to think of it, as during this time there really wasn't many active Jedi around. It's a story covering a period where the Empire really dominated. It was all down to the normal people of the galaxy to stand their ground and fight. Of course, there were elements in there that hinted to the grander Star Wars universe, from Luthen's Sky Kyber crystal being capable of powering a lightsaber,
I want it back when this is over.
all the way to the Empire actually being created and ruled by 2 Sith Lords. However, it isn't just fans that needed a bit of convincing. They were watching a Star Wars show at times, as the showrunners Tony Gilroy, along with some of the cast, have come out and said they didn't really feel like they were creating a Star Wars show whilst on set, with it telling a story so far away from the Skywalker saga. However, we already know this time around things are going to be a lot different. In fact, this time around they're actually going to be covering 4 years rather than 1, so still the same 12 episode, 3 episode arc format, where you've essentially got episodes 1 and 2 building up to episode 3 where you get that big payoff. And then it resets and starts again for episodes 4, 5 and 6, covering another part of the story. However, now it's leading directly into Rogue One, which means it's also leading us into the world that George Lucas created back in 1977. As we know, Rogue One ties directly into A New Hope. This in itself means we're going to be returning to those iconic locations such as Yavin 4, and because there's so much ground to make up, there shouldn't really be any time for slower episodes due to the characters in the story already being established at this point. We should also be seeing how all of these separate rebel groups merge together to form the Rebel Alliance, whilst also seeing how the Empire navigates the new threat, whilst also working on a secret superweapon. And it's already been confirmed too that Ben Mendelsohn's director Krennic will be playing a part, with him being in charge of Project Stardust, which is what all of this is eventually working towards. That makes complete sense. Showrunner Tony Gilroy also said himself that this time around it's about showing how Cassian becomes a leader, while showing the difficulties of forming a rebel alliance. And when you come to think about all the different types of rebel groups there are, we've already seen some such as Luthans, who are far more calculated and largely lurk in the shadows, kind of like the Imperial remnants in The Mandalorian, in that their key to success is their secrecy, all the way to Saw Gerrera's bunch, which are widely known as terrorists. So you've got all of these different groups that all want to fight the Empire for their own reasons, and they want to go about it in vastly different ways. So there'll be a lot of clashes around how exactly they should go about doing that together. Now, going back to what we said earlier about some of these characters being safe, whilst a lot of them aren't around in Rogue One, which leaves their fate up in the air, we know Cassian, Mon Mothma and Saw Gerrera are safe. But we also know by the time we get to the movies, Saul's been with the Alliance, and now he's acting on his own. So we should be seeing how that relationship really fell apart. But then you've got characters like Luthen, who's a fan favourite. He's arguably the biggest player behind all of this at this point. While some of these guys just aren't in Rogue One because they're off on their own missions elsewhere, Luthen's right at the top, alongside the likes of Mon Mothma. So for him not to be on Yavin 4 during these events wouldn't really make sense to me. Besides, there needs to be a loss to make the formation of the Alliance feel like it's a real struggle. So I think Luthen's actually going to meet his end this time around.
So what do I sacrifice?
Everything!
We also know from Rogue One that Cassian lost everything thanks to the Empire. Now, we haven't really seen that yet, but we have seen his attachment and his loyalty to his friends, whom he helped escape from the conflict on Ferrix. So I think everyone on board that ship, maybe even before it reaches its next destination in Season 2, actually ends up being killed. Now, that would be the Empire taking everything away from him, whilst also leaving no distractions on his journey that he needs to undertake to become a rebellion leader. And this also ties in perfectly with one of my favourite theories I had during the early days of Season 1, and that was that his droid B2 will eventually go on to become K2SO. I think we'll see B2 destroyed, maybe at the same time as all his friends, but Cassian somehow manages to download B2's memories into K2, which would make his sacrifice in Rogue One all the more meaningful. But arguably, the most important story to be told from the rebellion, and one I'm personally looking forward to seeing the most how it plays out, is Mon Mothma's transition from the Empire into becoming the face of the Rebel Alliance. You see, Mon's the character that's really the rock in which everything rotates around in the original trilogy, so to see how all of that goes down, with the potential of her needing to jump ship before she was pushed with the Empire, closing in on her, possibly also resulting in Cassian being the one to actually extract her from Coruscant. And I'm actually thinking we could see another extraction take place too, this time from the Kino 5. Now, Kino Loy, it's fair to say, has become somewhat of a fan favourite character from the show. However, he was left behind in episode 10 because he couldn't swim to safety, so chances are he was thrown back into his cell once the prison guards took back control and forced to do double or even triple the work, likely being one of the only ones left. However, shortly after the season finale, it was revealed that actor Andy Serkis would be returning for season 2.
Can't swim!
So, whilst growing out the rebellion and needing leaders, I think we can actually see Cassian return to Narkina 5 to break him out. I always thought he'd make an excellent rebel pilot. If he can't swim, perhaps he can fly. Although the show's ready to go, we know the next one out will be Skeleton Crew, so Andor Season 2 will likely come out in the first half of 25, but with that being said, it won't be long until promotion properly ramps up, and then we should have the official trailer arrive as well. With Celebration taking place next year, through the guest announcements we might be able to get a few clues as to which characters from Rogue One we could expect to see in the show, whilst in turn it could also drop a few more hints as to the direction Season 2 looks to be going in. It's clear to see the show's one of the most anticipated there is for Star Wars fans right now. So yeah, Season 1 got off to a slow start and really didn't make any waves with the numbers it brought in, but since then good word of mouth has definitely spread around and many more people have since sat down to check it out. So I think Season 2, if marketed properly, has the potential to be up there with the likes of The Mandalorian. So yeah, let's see where that goes. So let us know, what's the one thing you're looking forward to seeing next season? As always, drop your thoughts, theories and wildest speculations down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's video and subscribe if you'd like to catch more. I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you.